All right, so good morning. This week or this month, I'm talking to you about growing in the prophetic and what it looks like to develop a prophetic culture inside the local church. My heart is to see prophetic culture established inside the local church. We've been working with church leaders throughout the UK and other locations to help build what we call prophetic community. Prophets, prophecy, and personal prophetic words in season are part of the culture, both in Pioneer and in our local church back in the U.S. And many of us have been blessed and encouraged by the prophetic. When describing the prophetic, we like to say that we are basically calling up and calling out the gold in others, whether we believe that it's a ministry that exhorts, edifies, and encourages. Even the word prophesy is to encourage, to put courage into something. And that's our heart. And that's the beautiful thing about the prophetic is we get to put courage into God's people. I personally believe that the prophetic, because of the existence of the human element that's a part of it, and it's a spoken gift that at times it has been what we would say manipulated. Leaving people to feel at times that they've been manipulated in the name of prophecy. These mistakes in the name of prophecy usually come from an immature or unbalanced understanding of what prophetic ministry is. We have to deal with integrity issues when it comes to the prophetic, both independent and self-proclaimed prophets. So growing in the prophetic, 1 Timothy 4:14, it says, "Don't neglect the gift that was given you through prophecy when the body of elders laid their hands upon you." And then 1 Thessalonians 5:19, "Do not put out the Spirit's fire. Do not quench the Spirit. Do not treat prophecies with contempt, but test them all. Hold on to what is good. Reject every kind of evil." And then finally, 2 Timothy 1 verse 6, it says, "Paul advised Timothy to kindle afresh or fan into flame the gift of God that is in you through the laying on of hands." So growing in the prophetic, what does that actually look like and developing prophetic culture inside the local church? First of all, we have to be diligent that it's done in an orderly way. We need to be able to provide as carriers of the prophetic ministry. We need to be able to provide a safe place for people learning to hear from God. We've established in John 10 that the Lord says, "My sheep hear my voice." The prophetic doesn't simply exist with the prophet coming into the church once a year and having a word. And that's our hearts, is that everyone would learn to hear the voice of God. So how do we do that? And what does that look like both in our local church and in other churches as well? So in our church here in the U.S., we've established prophetic ministry in the context of teams. We like to do everything in teams. We never want to create an atmosphere where people feel that the only way that they're going to get a word from God is for someone to give them a word. I've had people over the years, they'll call me up or they'll contact me and they'll say, "Hey, I really need to set up a meeting with your team because I need a word from God." For me, when I thought about that and just looking over it, that's the same as, I have 6 children. That's the same as if one of my kids called one of their siblings and said, "Hey, will you call Dad and ask Dad what he thinks about me? I really want to hear what he thinks about me." My kids have direct access to me as their father, and they should be able to call Dad and see if there's anything that I want to tell them. So in the local church, we have teams that are introduced. Usually we do that. The first level or onboarding that happens is through small groups. And our small groups in our church, we meet for about 8 to 10 weeks, 3 times a year. And that small group, what that looks like is we'll pick a book study, and we'll have a trusted individual, a trusted member of our prophetic team in the beginning. I was teaching this class each session. because I had ownership over it. But over the years, I've been able to hand that off to other people that I trust that are mature in the prophetic. And we have these different book studies, and I have a list of books that I can recommend, and you probably have some as well. Obviously, with our relationship with Wayne Drain being our founding pastor, his book "He Still Speaks" has been one of the key books that we've used over the years. But what we'll do is we'll take a book study for this prophetic small group, and we'll work through it, and we'll practice in each class, and we'll prophesy over one another. And it's just a safe place with other individuals learning to hear the voice of God. Over the course of class, we provide opportunities for those in the class to practice in hearing from God, and they'll write down what they're hearing, and they'll have opportunities to share it in class. And in those settings, we'll judge the words. Does it line up with Scripture? Was it encouraging? Did it come from a place of love? And then out of this class, we're able to basically begin to identify people that are attending the class, they're pressing in, we're seeing growth in the prophetic from them. And then basically from this class, we're able to invite people, if you're interested in learning more about this, coming to one of our prophetic team meetings. And so that meeting is a different group. We try to meet once a month. We typically take a break during small group season because most of our people are involved in other small groups. But in our monthly prophetic team meetings, basically we're covering things that our leaders have identified as what we call the core principles of the prophetic. We cover different topics such as how to give a prophetic word. Don't be weird when giving prophetic words. Don't be long-winded. Don't be awkward. And then we practice on one another. Once again, it's all about practicing and hearing from God. We participate in activations. Our monthly meetings are basically some of the safest places for growing in the prophetic. We break down the words that are given. We go over these core principles. We talk about purpose. What's the purpose of New Testament prophecy? We cover our primary values, our preparation, how we arrive at those, our participation, and then practical matters. And then we put them into practice. The way that we put this into practice is our prophetic teams operate inside of what we call local ministry. Local ministry would basically be ministry inside the house. And so we have prophetic nights at our church where we'll gather different ministry teams together, whether it be the youth ministry team, the children's ministry team, the worship team, transformation team. And we also will come in and we'll spend time in prayer. And then our prophetic team, which is individuals that have been attending our class and are growing in the prophetic. And we provide them an opportunity to minister to the different teams that are serving in the local church. So once again, this is a safe place. We are judging the words, we're going over them, we're giving feedback, we're getting feedback from the teams, and it's just a safe place for us to minister and equip the local body, along with ministering and equipping our prophetic team. The next stage of ministry in teams that we have in our local church is once a quarter we have what we call Affirmation Sunday, and that's any new member that has joined our church and gone through a new members class. We basically have a Sunday set aside where we have a meal together with our church leadership. But prior to that meal, our prophetic team will come in and they have pictures and names only of the people that are joining the church. And then they will spend time in prayer. We break it down, divide it out. Usually each new member joining the church gets about 3 different words and season affirmations. Each of those are typically 2 to 4 minutes in length, and they will receive those affirmations. It's a really good time for our leadership to come in and hear the prophetic words that are spoken. There will be some words and season in there. For some people joining the church, this is their first exposure to the prophetic. Even though we are a prophetic church and we carry a prophetic culture, it's basically the first way a lot of times that people in our church are introduced to this prophetic culture. Following the affirmation, we'll have somebody from our team will sit down with each individual family that joins the church and goes through affirmations, and we'll go through those prophetic words line by line, and we'll give them a chance to gather feedback, maybe map out the words and see what the words were saying. Did we miss it? Did we get it right? And more often than not, the words are spot on. But then on the other side of it, me and my team were meeting with the individuals that came to this. They gave the words, and we're providing feedback to them, both in how it was delivered, were they staying inside the context that we had given them? Did they go 20 minutes when we asked them to just go 2? Did they give 5 words when we asked them to just give 3? And really, how are they submitting to the authority of the team? Once again, this is all happening at the local level, so it's in a controlled environment, it's in a safe space. But we're able to really work with the individuals. So by this point, the people that are serving on our prophetic team, they've given words, they've practiced inside the small groups over 6 to 10 weeks. Inside of that, they've been attending our monthly prophetic meetings, and they've been practicing there. They've also gotten to do ministry to our local ministry teams, and they've had practice and feedback there. And then with our affirmations, this is the first time that they're really getting to give prophetic words to people that are newer to our house and aren't familiar with the prophetic. It's a great, safe way for us to onboard individuals into our ministry team, because a lot of people might come in and be like, I'm prophetic, I hear from the Lord. I'm like, that's great. You may be a prophet, but you're not my prophet. And so we really want to guard that in our house and make sure that people are sticking to the protocols and the purpose and the values that we carry in our house. And it's a great way for us to really guard and protect those values. Basically, outside of that, that's the ministry in the house. Every so often, we'll have a worship night at our church, and they'll ask me to provide a prophetic team. And really, I'm drawing off of the people that have been attending these classes, have been coming to the group. And then I'll give them context. I'll be like, hey, I want you to press in for just 2 words tonight. I want you to press in for 3. Newer people to our team, when we do the affirmations back to that, I might only give a newer person one or two words and just ask them so they don't have an added pressure to do that. But basically, it's all about just are these people learning to grow in the prophetic? Are they able to submit to the authority? Because honestly, if someone's not going to submit to the authority, it's really not a safe individual for me to take them into other settings. And those other settings, that's other churches. So we get invited to minister at other churches. We get invited to minister to business leaders. Sometimes in the past, our elders have had other church leaders over for a meal, and then we'll just pray and prophesy over them. And so if I've got someone that is can minister inside the confines and the context of how we're building our team and shaping our prophetic team, then I can bring them into that setting. If we have a ministry night and I've got someone that can submit to the direction and go with the 1 or 2 words that I've given them, then that's someone that I'm able to give other opportunities to. Wayne, our founding pastor, travels a lot, and at times, if it's a local travel where it's within a couple of hours of our city, then he'll be able to take other people with him. And when he goes, this is ministry done, and people are bringing him into their church. And so we have to know that we can trust the individuals that we're taking. And so, like this week, for instance, Wayne is ministering at another church in town, and he asked me, if he could carry 3 people with him to do words in season at the end of his message. And so I was able to give him 3 people that he could contact, and these are people that I trust, and I can send out in our name, and they're ministering in the name of City Church. And so that's what we're doing there. The further you get from the house, the more trusted you become in your prophetic gifting, We obviously aren't going to carry someone who just read Wayne's book with us to minister at a church outside the road. We're looking for things during the trainings. Can they adhere to our structure? If we're aiming to 2 to 3 minutes, do they go 5 to 10? We also, another way that we build prophetic team inside the local church is we've done different things this year. We did an angel tree, which was a fun prophetic exercise, and I know a lot of y'all probably participated in that. We had about 100 people, and we basically assigned everybody a random number, and then we gave them some prayer prompts, and they prayed through those and prophesied, and words in season and testimonies that came back from it were amazing. We also did Prophesy Your Year, a prophetic journal this year that had different prayer prompts for the individual to practice hearing from God in their daily lives. And so we tried to provide many different opportunities, many different activations for our people because, one, it's fun to hear the voice of the Lord. And two, I don't think you can practice enough. And like I said at the beginning, the benefit to this, the benefit to our heart is we get to hear the voice of the Lord for other people, and we get to encourage them. We get to exhort them. We get to edify them and lift them up, call out the gold. I'll just say this. I was thinking last week, when it comes to the prophetic, I'll give you this example. It is so easy for us to look at the landscape of the political environments in our city, the division in our nations. This election season across the globe, we will see more global leaders elected, and it's really such a time as this. But I hear people on social media, I see people in articles on TV, on the internet, I see people calling out doom and gloom and prophesying judgment and all these things over our nations. And I had an encounter with somebody that was prophetic here a couple of weeks ago. And I just asked them, I said, what, they weren't from America, but I just said, what are you seeing for America? And they just came back with this judgment and this real harsh word and said, yeah, this is what the Lord's about to do. And it was this harsh judgment and really an Old Testament style deal. And it was almost this moment where I was like, all right, here's your word, and I hear it, but I'm not going to receive it because the picture the Lord showed me was Ezekiel 37, and that's been a life verse for me my entire life. In fact, I have the Hebrew word for prophesy is on my arm there from Ezekiel 37. It means speak life. And in that scripture, in that passage, the prophet is taken out, Ezekiel is taken out, and what he sees is a desert full of dry bones. Now, if he wanted to be that prophet, he could have said, thus saith the Lord, I see death, I see dead bones, I see a desert full of dry bones. But no, what happened in that moment was the Lord said, what do you see? And Ezekiel tells him, I see this. But then the Lord says, speak to the bones. Prophesy to the bones. Speak life. And that's what happens with the prophetic, and where I feel like we have to make that decision when we hear the voice of God. Anybody can call out death. Anybody can call out sin. Anybody can call out where you're at. But when I'm ministering to people on the streets, when I'm ministering to local governments, state governments, to a nation, to other churches, they know their sin. They don't need me to tell it to them. But I have to make that decision. Am I going to be somebody that just speaks what I see, the death, or am I going to speak life into that? Am I going to bring encouragement? Am I going to put courage into this situation? And so I really feel like that's where we're at in this moment. I feel like 2024, I've been in Psalms 24. Our leadership's been in Psalms 24. It's a time of open doors, open heavens. We're experiencing that now in our nation. And yeah, I'm going to choose to, in this moment, to speak life and put courage into a nation. I'm not going to call out just the sin and not speak the life into it. And so that's a decision we all have to make. Is am I going to just be this prophet that calls out the death and what I see, or am I going to call out the life that I see as well? Because that's what Ezekiel does in that moment, and he speaks life into it, and it brings life into the situation. And so I just want to encourage you. My heart for this ministry, my heart for all of this is to develop a prophetic culture inside the local church, because I feel like all of our reaches, if we are doing that, then we can then impact our local church. We can impact our cities. We can impact our educational systems. How many prophets do you actually need? Well, how many schools do you need? How many? When you have all the individual schools inside your nation, think about all the schools in your city. Think about all the churches in your city. Everyone needs to hear the voice of the Lord. Everyone needs to have life spoken into them. And so we can accomplish this far greater than simply sending in a prophetic person once every so often to speak life into a situation. Because, I've been to churches, I've visited churches where they didn't move in the prophetic. They believed in the prophetic, but they relied on that once a year, twice a year when the prophet would come in. And they would wear the bright shirts. They would sit on the front row. They would dance a little bit louder that night, because they were all wanting to hear from God. They were all wanting to get a word from the prophet. And my heart is, no, let's develop a prophetic culture where prophecy is normal. It's part of our weekly services. We would never imagine a church that didn't have a pastor. We would never imagine a church that didn't have a preacher. So why do we have churches without prophets? And so my heart for this is to develop this prophetic culture, to grow in it, to encourage one another. Like I said, I can email a list of book resources to the group. I can throw it in WhatsApp so that you can see those. But yeah, be encouraged. I'm so encouraged personally. This class and all of y'all that have bought into this and are attending this class and with a heart to truly grow in the prophetic. And I want to see this. I want to see this established both in the UK. I want to see it in America as well. And so thank you. Thank you for doing this class. I've been so encouraged spending this year with y'all. I loved seeing most of you when we were at the conference here recently. It was such a blessing to me just to see the fruits of this class, and Paula and Joy and everybody else that served, Sue, everybody else that served in this. And so great, so encouraging. Thank y'all. Y'all been more of a blessing to me. So blessings to y'all. Thank you.